Why the Maharlika is the wealthiest nation in the world today. A documentary of Filipino future. The information you are about to hear and read in this video are from the Contact Phoenix Review Journal, Volume 47, Number 12, published on August 9, 2006 under the title, Independent Confirmation of the Philippines Gold. Note: read and listen carefully, do not skip or fast forward this video, because the information you are about to know today is mind-boggling, and if you are a real patriotic Filipino, information revealed in this video will shake you to the core, and will inspire you to love your country more than anything else, and will enlighten you to the real truth about the great love of President Ferdinand Marcos has had for this nation. Throughout the Spanish occupation of the Maharlika, members of the Tajín/Talano clan have been visiting Europe since some of their relatives were English and Austrian. From 1866 to 1898, Prince Julian MacLeod Talano, who became title holder of OCT 01-4 in 1864, had also been frequenting the Vatican. In 1934, under Pope Pius XII, the Vatican negotiated with a member of the Filipino royal family, the Christian Talano clan in the Maharlika. An agreement was reached that 640,000 metric tons of the Talano gold would be lent to the Pope. This was part of that gold accumulated by the Southeast Asian Srivahayan/Majapahit Empire during its glorious reign of 900 years. In 1939, two members of the Talano family and a Roman Catholic priest, Father Jose Antonio Diaz, brought the gold from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, to the Vatican. After doing this, Father Diaz went back to the Maharlika and resided in Cabanatuan City. After World War II, he facilitated the safe return of the 640,000 metric tons of gold from the Vatican to the Maharlika. Manuel Acuna Roxas, a relative of the Acuna/Tajín/Talano clan, then a congressman, and Bishop Enrique Sobrapina, Sr., in the presence of attorney Lorenzo Tanada, received the gold in Manila. A lease agreement was made between the Talano clan and the Maharlika government. A total of 617,500 metric tons of gold was deposited in the newly installed Central Bank of the Maharlika to comply with its requirement for gold reserve. Under the terms of the contract, the Central Bank became the holder of that gold. That lease agreement will expire in the year 2005. Having gained the trust and confidence of Father Diaz, the Talano clan made him the main negotiator and trustee of their gold. Father Diaz, in turn, hired the services of attorney Ferdinand Marcos, then a highly recommended brilliant young lawyer having attained notoriety when he successfully defended himself in the Nalandasan case in 1939. The Talano clan paid commission to Father Diaz and attorney Marcos in gold, 30% from the principal of 640,000 metric tons. In 1949, the two richest men in the world were Father Jose Antonio Diaz and attorney Ferdinand Marcos. Between the two of them they legitimately earned and owned 192,000 metric tons of gold. Ferdinand Marcos withdrew their share of the gold from the central bank and minted it RPCB. Sometime later, Father Diaz and Marcos brought their gold to Switzerland, in the Swiss Bank Corporation in Zurich. The remaining 400,000 metric tons of Talano gold is in the third-floor basement of the Central Bank minting plant in East Ave, Quezon City. There are 950,000 metric tons of gold, declared missing in the International Court of Justice, picked up by Yamashita from its European ally, Hitler. Another 250,000 tons of the Japanese loot around Southeast Asia are both now in the Maharlika. This country then became the holder of 1.6 million metric tons of gold bars. Some of the Yamashita gold buried in the Maharlika has been found. But the bulk of it is still buried to this day. And even now, thousands are secretly digging for it, including Japanese treasure hunters. The Wall Street Journal in its November 15, 1985 issue wrote that 2/3 of all the gold in the world is in the Maharlika. 1/3 is divided among the rest of the countries in the world. Very few Filipinos know this. Let's review some numbers at this point because there are certainly some unexplained losses along the way. The Tajín Talano gold started at 720,000 tons. 640,000 tons were transported to the Vatican and back, leaving 80,000 tons unaccounted from the outset. Out of the 640,000 tons, 192,000 tons were paid in commission, which should leave 448,000 tons, but somehow that number has become 400,000 tons, leaving another 48,000 tons unaccounted. Following this story, there are 128,000, 80,000 plus 48,000 tons of gold which somehow slipped through the cracks, in addition to 192,000 tons earned in commissions, whereabouts unknown. Oops. Out of the remaining 400,000 tons, we do not know how much remains. We know there was an effort to do a major disappearing act when the old central bank morphed into the new Bangko Sentral Pilipinas, but a recent decision of the Supreme Court, Banco Filipino versus BSP, has upheld that BSP is responsible for the liabilities of the old central bank. So, how much longer can they keep these hundreds of thousands of tons of gold hidden under the carpet and out of sight of the Filipino people while 80% live at the edge of starvation? The point is that ultimately, a complete accounting should show where all of the original 720,000 tons went, not to mention the estimated 1.2 million tons of Yamashita treasure, combined German and Japanese plunder, identified above. That is very nearly 2 million tons of gold worth more than $38 trillion at today's price. The phony, CIA-backed EDSA, People Power, exhibition of 1986 had one primary purpose, and that was to take this vast quantity of gold from the Philippines and the Filipino people for the benefit of the international banking cartel to enslave mankind. What about the Santa Romana/Diaz/Hayes Vatican Commission shared with Ferdinand Marcos? When Father Jose Antonio Diaz, alias Severino Sta Romana, died in 1974, all that 30% commission in gold became the legendary Marcos Gold. After providing for his family in Marcos's letter of instruction, the whole wealth derived from this was supposed to be given to the Filipino people. This was the Marcos wealth that some politicians and churchmen kept on saying was the ill-gotten Marcos wealth that until today is in Marcos' secret accounts. On April 9, 1973, Marcos said, "My earthly goods have been placed in the custody and for the disposition of the Marcos Foundation dedicated to the welfare of the Filipino people." The plans of Ferdinand Marcos are hinted at in the following citation. In his grand plan, Marcos wanted to re-establish the former grandeur of the Maharlika and the whole region of Southeast Asia, the former Malayan Empire. In June 1983, Marcos appeared before the first world leaders in Toronto. He announced his plan to boost the economy of the Southeast Asia region by creating the Asian dollar. This would be backed up by the 400,000 metric tons of gold in the central bank of the Maharlika and the other gold he scattered around the region. He would also add to this his own personal 192,000 metric tons in Switzerland. The Asian dollar, backed up by the 2/3 of all the gold in the world that was in the Maharlika, would have made the Maharlika money more valuable and stronger than the American dollar. This was his vision to raise Southeast Asia to be at par with the rest of the first world countries. There is very good reason to believe that Mr. Marcos's plans were even more far-reaching than this suggests. There is plenty of solid evidence of a program Marcos worked on with American President Ronald Reagan, which is referred to as the ABL, Ang Bagong Lipunan, program. Under this program, some 250 sets of gold, documentation, and related ABL currency were to be shipped to various countries around the world. A typical set included 3,500 metric tons of gold, worth some $70 billion at today's price. Does it start to make a little more sense as to why those UN inspectors were using metal detectors in the palaces of Iraq while they supposedly saw weapons of mass destruction? Or why Saddam Hussein was such a threat to the powers that be? Or how and why the price of gold has been depressed on world markets? Or why former gold bug Alan Greenspan would come out with a statement labeling gold a barbarous relic? Indeed. To understand why it was necessary to remove Ferdinand Marcos from office in 1986, it helps to know that the Yamashita treasure was considered booty. After the passage of 30 years without a valid claim against it, this booty would belong to its new possessor. That would have been in 1976, but the International Criminal Court, ICC, at that time extended the deadline by 10 years to 1986. The someones who had accumulated the German and Japanese plundered gold gathered in by Yamashita obviously preferred not to come forward with their claims, because such claims could have revealed the source of such wealth, which was, in all probability, quite probably derived from illicit activities. What became of the remaining 400,000 metric tons pertaining to the Tajín Talano clan, and where is it today? To this day, the 400,000 metric tons of the Maharlika, Talano, gold are still in the central bank in East Avenue, Quezon City. Nobody can move it because Marcos insured it with the Lloyds of London and its agents are guarding it. But the present government does not acknowledge its existence. Not only have successive governments of the Philippines failed to acknowledge the existence of the gold, they have conspired to keep this information from being known to the Filipino people. We assume this is because they have been working at ways to convert the gold for their own selfish gain, probably in conspiracy with the international banking cartel. To this day, however, no one seems to have found a legal solution. Mr. Marcos was, after all, a brilliant attorney. Immediately after Ferdinand Marcos was removed from office literally by a U.S. military helicopter, the newly installed president, Corazon Aquino, formed the Presidential Commission on Good Government, PCGG, purportedly to go after the Marcos' ill-gotten wealth. It was very important to the conspirators that this wealth should be labeled ill-gotten, even though, as has already been shown, Mr. Marcos was in his own right the wealthiest man on the face of the earth and had absolutely no need to take anything from anyone. A decision of the Federal Supreme Court of Switzerland dated December 21, 1990 said, by decision of May 29, 1986, the Attorney General of the District of Zurich accepted in principle the legal assistance requested by the Philippines and invited all the banks of the city of Zurich to freeze immediately all the accounts, deposits or safes of the persons, companies, or foundations, of Marcos, mentioned in the order. The accounts were frozen at the request of the government of the Philippines, and the PCGG has ensured they have remained frozen to this day. This is all a grand scheme, or scam. Blinded Filipinos must keep repeating that Marcos was a thief so that those hundreds of billions of dollars of Marcos money will remain frozen and not be given to them for their use. Consequently, they must constantly borrow money from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank, WB, with so much interest so that this country will remain a slave and shackled to the foreign powers. The original 720,000 metric tons of gold left by the Filipinos' benevolent forefather, Luzong Tajín, Maharaja of the Maharlika, is mind-boggling. From this, the 640,000 metric tons that was brought to the Vatican in 1939 and back to the vault of the Central Bank of the Maharlika, 617,500 metric tons, on January 7, 1949 could have made the Maharlika a first world country. The Marcos-Diaz alliance deposited their earned 192,000 metric tons of gold in one Swiss bank and not stashed away in 54 countries, as some individuals in government want the people to believe. There is, however, evidence to indicate that the ABL packages were delivered out to many countries. Some of these countries appear to have activated their gold holdings. For instance, look at Dubai and the tremendous construction boom occurring in that nation. From whence came the great wealth to do this? From that, the daily interest earned for this country should be more than enough so that Filipinos need not borrow from the oppressive IMF and WB or leave their families and go abroad to earn dollars. History will show that the money was not stashed away and inaccessible but available to truly deserving Filipinos. There was nothing secret about the Marcos accounts. These accounts were only made secret by some people in the government so that the public would not know its real story. But, nowadays, some of them are secretly trying to withdraw from the Marcos accounts for themselves. However, each time they attempt to do this abroad they end up in jail. Here is another mind-boggling food for thought. In 15 Japanese banks alone, the Marcos-Diaz consortium deposited 44,000, part of the remaining 720,000, metric tons of gold, also minted RPCB, and made liquid to a total of $518,559,000,000 US dollars, $518.6 billion, between 1962 to 1974, earning an average of 1.5% non-compounded interest per year. There are more tons of gold in other banks around the world. Gold for gold, dollar for dollar, this country, the Maharlika, is the richest country in the world. During a talk show in a US TV the week following the bombing of the New York Twin Towers, President Bush was asked this question: which is the richest country in the world today? With a smile he said, the Philippines. Marcos knew it, but he could not talk. The 30-year period, starting 1946, for the gold claims of the claimants of World War II loot, as determined by the International Court of Justice in Hague, was extended by 10 more years. That was to be the year 1986. At that time they made sure that Marcos would no longer talk. After kidnapping him from Malacanang, they put him in a golden prison in Hawaii. So much about the Sarsala of the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution. The Roman Catholic Archbishop, his priests, the seminarians, his nuns, and his blinded followers who just pray, pay and obey. These traitors on the Filipino people did a good job in favor of those two foreign almighty powers. The invisible and long arm of the foreign powers are now exposed and brought to light so that everyone will see the real, greater, and hidden manipulators and authors of the miseries of this country today. End of quotations from the Contact Phoenix Journal Review. The Lord said in Isaiah 43:5, "And I will give thee the treasures of darkness, and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which call thee by thy name, am the God of Israel." In 1 Corinthians 2:9, the promise was plainly stated, "But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man, the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." So what you should need to do in order to claim this God-given inheritance. God used the Talano clan to keep these gargantuan wealth for centuries, and later God used President Ferdinand Marcos to save, kept and preserve them and his other wealth to benefit the Filipinos of the future. Will you just sit down and ignore all these things? Or will you join the revolution of enlightened Filipinos, or Maharlikans, to reclaim their God-given heritage? The decision is yours. In 2022, the only son of the great President Ferdinand Marcos will restore the glory of this nation. Through Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s advocacy to make the Philippines great again, we are one step away to the great destiny that awaits our country in the near future.
Ang panawagan ng panahon ngayon ay para sa tunay at makabuluhang pagkakaisa. Pagkakaisa ng bawat Pilipino. Pagkakaisa ng ating bansa, Pilipino, kapwa Pilipino, nagtutulungan, nagmamahalan. Taas noo dahil tayo ay Pilipino. Yan ang hamon ng panahon. Yan ang hamon sa atin ng bagong henerasyon para sa maliwalas at masiglang kinabukasan. Sama-sama nating harapin ang hamon ng panahon. Magkapit-bisig tayo at isigaw sa buong bansa na hindi tayo makakapayag na magtagumpay ang mapanirang politiko at politika na siyang dahilang pagkakawatak-watak ng Pilipino. Magkapit-bisig tayo at isigaw natin sa buong bansa na ang Pilipino ay nagkakaisa tungo sa isang malaya at masiglang Pilipinas. Sa tulong ninyo at ng bayan, pamumunuan ko ang isang revolusyon sa puso, isip at gawa tungo sa isang tunay at makabuluhang pagbabago. Pamumunuan ko rin ang isang kampanya upang makamit natin ang ating mga pangarap sa buhay. Hindi ako makapapayag na mawala sa atin ang ilang bahagi ng ating bansa. Ipaglalaban ko ang integridad ng ating mahal na Pilipinas. Ibabalik natin ang respeto at paggalang ng buong mundo sa Pilipino. Ibabalik natin sa tulong ninyo ang pagkilala sa Pilipino bilang isang matalino at magaling na lahi. Ibabalik natin ang ating dignidad. Ibabalik natin ang kultura ng Pilipino na mapagpakumbaba, may takot sa Diyos at mapagmahal sa magulang, sa mga nakakatanda at sa kapwa. Sa tulong ninyo at ng sambayanan, pangungunahan ko rin ang isang revolusyon sa isip at gawa upang marating natin ang ating pinapangarap na isang matahimik, maunlad na bayan at masiglang mamamayan. Dahil dito, taus-puso kong tinatanggap ang hamon ng panahon, ang hamon ng bagong henerasyon. Tinatanggap ko ng buong pagpakumbaba ang hamon ng bayan.
Long live Maharlika. And blessed be the one true God of Israel. Together we can make it, for our battle belongs to the Lord, for the benefit of today, and all the future generations to come. So be it, in Jesus' name. Subscribe to our Filipino Future YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to get informed about our newly uploaded videos. Also, please like and follow our Facebook page. Thank you. Like and share this video so that many more Filipinos will be informed. God bless you.